WDNA 88.9 FM, where we present live weekly performances in the WDNA Jazz Gallery. And we feature students, faculty, and alumni from Florida International University's Herbert and Nicole Wertheim School of Music and the Performing Arts. I'm your host today and FIU faculty, Dr. Russ Spiegel, and along with our producer, Dr. Karen Velaz, we'd like to welcome you to our show. Whether you're listening to us at home, in your car, or live on WDNA.org/FIU, we are delighted to have you with us. Today, we are pleased to feature the FIU Jazz Ensemble 2 under the leadership of FIU Professor Gary Campbell, and featuring undergraduate jazz majors Brian Lopez on the trumpet, Derek Sanguino on the guitar, Carlos Cardova on bass, and Angel Vargas on the drums. my favorite tunes from Weather Report and Jaco Pastorius, and I'm sitting here with Gary Campbell, Professor Gary Campbell. And Gary, a couple questions for you.
Sure. Good morning, Russ.
Good morning, Gary. Why don't you tell us a little about this band?
Well, this is combo number 2. Not necessarily in rankings, but because both combos, 1 and 2, which I teach, are all both very good, and different personnel, naturally, and different repertoire, different focus. So they are choosing their own repertoire for the most part.
Okay, that was actually going to be my next question. how they go about
what
getting
am I
that.
going to tell them to play? I mean, they're going to play what they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
So might as well let them do it within limits, of course.
Okay. What would be an outer limit?
Well, I don't want them to play any Dixieland at this time, or anything that's too out. You know what I mean, avant-garde or anything.
Okay.
But they're not into that particularly anyway.
Okay.
They'll get there.
Or avant-garde Dixieland.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Anything
All right.
like that.
Okay. So when you're working with them, what are maybe just a couple things that you work with them on?
Well, I mean, the number one thing, of course, is to learn to really pay attention all the time and listen all the time, and listen to the group, not just be focused on what you're doing at the moment or what you think you're going to do. I mean, because you're just part of a 4-piece unit,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is interactive, and so you have to think of it that way,
Right.
to make things work, because that's the way things work.
Well, do you agree with Wynton Marsalis's approach? He said it's like having a conversation.
Oh yeah, sure. Even if everyone's talking at once. I mean, there have been experiments with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Gould's old contrapuntal radio, I think he called it. Anyway, that's another subject.
Oh, you're right. Or was it Ives, another chant?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a type of a conversation, but yet, hopefully, the subject matter is agreed upon and everything.
Right.
That's what the focus is on.
So we have, what are the next 2 tunes we're going to be hearing?
If this list hasn't been changed already, number 2, I believe, is going to be "Trust Me."
Who's that by? Oh, Herbie Hancock.
Herbie Hancock.
Right.
Not an obscure figure.
And after that, we'll be going straight into...
Number 3, which is "Fuchsia Swing" or "Henya."
Oh, no, we have an audible here. What's the third one? Oh, okay, given by Kurt Rosenwinkel. Anyways, back to our show with the FIU Jazz Ensemble 2. All right. So, you are listening to the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM with the FIU Jazz Ensemble 2 under the leadership of Professor Gary Campbell, and we'll be right back after these messages. This week, the FIU School of Music will be hosting the following raft of concerts. Tonight, November 14th, 7:30 p.m. in the Wertheim Performing Arts Center Concert Hall. It's the FIU Jazz Vocal Ensemble. Join us for a fabulous evening of cabaret by FIU jazz vocalists and rhythm section. The Jazz Vocal Ensemble is directed by Dr. Lisanne Lyons and consists of 12 to 15 vocalists and a 4-piece rhythm section who perform a varied and challenging repertoire of jazz and jazz-influenced music as well as contemporary, Latin, and a cappella styles. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November 15th at 7:30 p.m. in the Wertheim Performing Arts Center Concert Hall, the FIU Percussion Ensemble. The FIU Percussion Ensemble performs a variety of chamber works for percussion. Works to be performed include pieces by distinguished composers such as Emma O'Halloran, Molly Joyce, and Rudiger Pawasar, and directed by FIU faculty member Dr. Colin Williams. Also this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. at FIU Manor Wynwood, FIU Student Composers Concert. Dive into a fusion of music and technology, featuring diverse instrumentals, vocals, and cutting-edge electronic elements. Witness the evolution of sound as our students showcase their boundless creativity, crafting compositions that span a spectrum of captivating aesthetics and groundbreaking techniques. From the studios of Dr. Orlando Jacinto Garcia and Dr. Jacob Sudol. Thursday at 7:30 p.m. in the Wertheim Performing Arts Center Concert Hall, the FIU Symphonic Band joins forces with the Fusion Community Concert Band to bring to the FIU campus an evening of traditional and contemporary band literature. This concert will feature music by composers Robert W. Smith, Richard Strauss, Ralph Vaughan Williams, Percy Granger, Robert Sheldon, J. Scott McKenzie, and John Philip Sousa, and led by Professor Barry Bernhardt and George Essen, the guest conductor. And Friday, November 17th at 7:30 p.m., again in the Wertheim Performing Arts Center Concert Hall, the FIU Wind Ensemble. The FIU Wind Ensemble is the university's premier ensemble for wind and percussion, and is conducted by Dr. Brent Alston. And finally, on Saturday, November 18th at 8 p.m., in the Wertheim Performing Arts Center Concert Hall, the Eanes Quartet. In partnership with the Friends of Chamber Music of Miami, we proudly present a special performance featuring the world-renowned Eanes Quartet. For these and many more exciting events, you can find information at fiu.universitytickets.com. And now, back to our show with the FIU Jazz Ensemble 2 under the leadership of Professor Gary Campbell. So I'm sitting here with Professor Gary Campbell.
Hi, Russ. Hi, Russ.
Very good. We were talking about how you came up and when you were learning how to play your instrument. There were two things. You went to the University of Indiana, correct? But you were also in New York City performing. Can you give us a little more background about how you came by your skills?
Well, with a lot of attention to trying to play in real situations, because the university system was not really geared for teaching jazz music, formally at that time. I mean, I went to Indiana University in '64 and '5, and then in '66. I think I was there a year and a half, and then migrated down here with Whit Seidner to go to University of Miami when Jerry Coker got the job to start a program.
Mm-hmm.
And then having a way to get out of going to Vietnam, I was able to move
Wow.
to New York and not have to be in schools, which because it wasn't at that time it was in its infancy sort of, but I had good teachers on the outside, David Baker and Jerry Coker, and everybody that I ever played with in my hometown of Indianapolis, which is a very jazz-rich tradition there. And in New York, learning from each other players.
Right. But we were also talking about how a lot of the stuff you learned, you did not learn in school, actually, correct?
I didn't learn much of what I know in school at all, because it didn't exist in school at that time, unless you had the resources to go to North Texas, University of North Texas now, or Berkeley, neither of which I could, was able to attend. And so you learn by playing, and the other people, and some of the guys that I was hanging with in New York would take lessons. Like a few guys were taking a few lessons with Lenny Tristano. Dave Liebman took lessons with Charles Lloyd, very informal type of lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Or, Joe Allard, who was a great wind teacher.
Sure.
But I couldn't afford that either, so they would, tell me, hey, Joe says this, and show me what they were doing. So I got to learn second, vicariously through those sources, but mostly playing music, learning tunes, writing, trying to write tunes, and everybody was writing tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And
But you also came up with your own concept. You've published a few books.
well, that was later, yeah. I didn't start publishing books. Well, actually, in 1966, when I was here in Florida the first time with Jerry Coker, he had a project of writing the book Patterns for Jazz, which is still a very good selling book and very effective. And he was my mentor, so he said, I want you to write what you're working on in a certain area, And then there were three of us, Jimmy Casal, Coker, and myself, who were the main authors of this book. And it's, that was the first, but then that really, I wasn't the sole author. I didn't start writing books until I started teaching many years later in 1982 at University of Miami. And then I realized that I needed to get organized if I'm going to be teaching here.
Right.
I needed something to keep me from forgetting what to tell these guys, because I had no experience with learning things in a linear fashion. Now we do this, now we do this. It's always an individual kind of a progression, because everybody's different. And
So, oh, I'm sorry.
so then, anyway, that's when I was inspired to write the book, just for the sake of trying to be orderly in teaching. But of course, in the course of that, I learned to organize myself a little better and also write more. I'd written before then when I lived in New York. I'd written some tunes.
What would you say is the biggest change in jazz education, for example, what you find now at FIU as opposed to going back 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, it goes back further than that, but I don't know. My main impression is, and this is just my reality, is learning to play music of any kind, but especially jazz, where you're responsible for so much of the content, as well as the community of it and ensemble improvisation and all this. That's a full-time situation. And I don't know how the young people are able to go to school and actually progress in the same way that my generation did, and do both at the same time. There's not enough time in a day, and a person only has so much energy. And of course, you have to have some downtime and all that. I mean, it's good, but at the same time, it's affected everything. It's not as good, I don't think, if everybody, like in school now, everybody's learning from the same book, so to speak. You're learning the theory and the same methods and all this kind of stuff, and repertoire is kind of categorized here, do this and that and the other, in a certain sequence. And so then the danger is, as a result, everybody comes out playing the same.
Right.
And, or too much the same.
So what one piece of advice, if you can distill it into one piece of advice, would you give to a musician to find their own way in music?
Well, this is a evolution of the self. I mean, you have to, I have a couple of great quotes from great players, but they're not fit for the public airwaves.
Okay.
But the thing is, in essence, like everybody says, no, I don't want to be a pattern player. I don't want to be a clone. I don't want to be, and this or that and the other. And the wise teacher, and I'll use other words, says, well, I want to be me. And he says, well, whatever are you? Who are you? What are you talking about here? That's just an idea. I want to play like me.
Right.
But what is that? You
So-
have to at least start getting a lead into what that is.
Well, how would you go about doing that? Maybe one or two steps. It doesn't have to be the whole process.
Live your life, Let things happen. I mean, everybody said, oh, I'm not ready to get married. I'm not ready to do this or that. But, you're never ready. I don't think. By the time you think you are, it's getting a little late usually, and then that pours over into the relationship. When are you ready to have children?
Okay.
Never. I mean, you don't know what's happening until boom, the kid appears, and then you go, uh-oh, and then that's the next chapter.
So bring that back to jazz and jazz.
It's all jazz, Russ.
It's all jazz. Okay. All right. Well, with that in mind, let's get back to the jazz, and we're going to hear a couple more tunes by the band. Let's see, how are we doing with time? We have time for at least one more tune. We'll see where we are after this. And what are we going to hear now?
What did he say?
Okay. Enya by Ambrose Akinmusire.
Okay, I can't pronounce the trumpet player's name, but I know he's fantastic.
There we go.
Ambrose,
All
the
right.
Ambrose trumpet player. Henya, is that what you said? Henya.
listening to the FIU Jazz Ensemble 2 under the leadership of Professor Gary Campbell and featuring undergraduate majors Brian Lopez on the trumpet and flugelhorn, Derek Sanguino on guitar, Carlos Cardova on electric and acoustic bass, and Angel Vargas on drums on the FIU Music Hour on WDNA 88.9 FM. I've been your faculty host, Russ Spiegel, and along with our producer, Karen Velaz, we'd like to thank our production crew, FIU grad students Ruben and Anna, WDNA sound and tech wizard Alex Aldrich, Danny, and the staff of WDNA 88.9 for today's broadcast. If you would like more information on all our programs, make sure to call 305-348-2896. You can also like our Facebook and our Instagram page to stay up to date with all our upcoming performances. Thanks again to our guests, and thanks again to Gary Campbell.
Thanks, Russ.
And we're going to hear one more tune. I think we have time for at least one more tune, and that tune is? What's the name? Oh, The Impaler by Jeff. Oh, great one, yes, from Jeff Tain Watts. have time for one more.